Differentially distributed linguistic capital. So now we look at that what were the different languages or different language competencies that were given to the students studying in the two mainstream schooling systems, private and public. So you had participants, first of all. Let's look at their profile. So there was this range of incomes given, and we could see that all those studying from the middle class were in the private school, and they had higher incomes. And we call them PSPs, that is private school participants. All those coming from a working class or lower income groups were in the government schools, and we will call them government school participants. Now, having said that, please remember that in the government schools, there was one more division. There was a difference of incomes, and there was a substantial difference between two groups within government school students. One had these a higher income, a much higher income, and then there were those who were quite income poor in relation to the other group. So we'll talk about the differences between these two groups also. So all PSPs, that is, all the older siblings of who had studied in a private school, were still studying after 5 years, and they were in higher education. All the government school participants with a higher income level were also in higher education, while all those with a lower income of graduating from or completing their secondary education from the school were in work. So all of them were actually working. So in secondary school, all those who had studied from a private school, they had studied through a system in which English was the medium of instruction and Urdu was taught as a subject. However, in Sindh, they also learned Sindhi in addition to Urdu. In the government school, again, Urdu was the medium of instruction, and they studied English as a subject, and also additionally, if these schools were in Sindh, they also studied Sindhi as a subject. Now, after secondary school, or almost at the end of secondary school, so if we combine both the brothers and look at the case results, we find that among the private school students, all of them knew English, but there was a variation, and only 7 of the 16 participants felt they were very proficient in English language. So what we are saying is, although all of them had learned English language, but the level at which they had learned and which they assessed themselves was not the one which they really desired. So and it was very clear in their own use of language also. Interestingly, all the private school students, without any exception, felt they had learned very little Urdu. So much so that there was one participant who could not even write Urdu, and he was now doing some internship with an NGO where he was required to use Urdu. So he only used Roman English to write Urdu. And then there was only one among all the participants who believed that actually it was a she, that she knew Sindhi. Now we come to the government school participants. All of them had learned Urdu except the lower income group. Now the lowest of the income group over here did not even acquire literacy skills in Urdu as simple as that. And he could not even write, two of them could not even write a single sentence. And this might come to your mind that how come this person was able to pass the metric exam. Well, there are different ways of passing that exam. And of course, there are different systems that we need to keep check of and how that happens. So none of them in the government schools felt confident in English language. And some of them, however, said that they had learned Sindhi to some extent, but they could not really use it as such. So they had studied it in a way that they had rote learned it and they reproduced what was coming in the exam.